in my early 30s, I felt like this desperation to settle down, like it was a race.
More women are ditching the idea of marriage. About 50% of women felt marriage was not important to having a fulfilling life.
The valuing of romance and the valuing of a partner over platonic friendship is definitely pushed onto women more than it is onto men, to their detriment.
There is an overemphasis on romantic love in our culture.
Society's obsession with romantic love over everything else is just a little out of balance, and I think it's kind of sabotaging people. Let's talk about it today. Welcome back to Step by Step. This is a podcast where in the past I've talked about ways to live better holistically, but now it's kind of turning into a commentary channel. You guys are liking it and I'm having fun with it, so let's continue. I have a lot of ideas of things to talk about, but this is one I've been thinking about for a little while. It is our society's prioritization of romantic love over everything else, almost as a replacement for community, and how I think it's gone a little too far to the detriment of people, both single and in relationships. Now listen, I'm not a total hater. I am single now, but eventually would like to be in a relationship again. So I'm not like anti-men, anti-marriage, anything like that, though I have seen some discourse like that on TikTok recently that is just sort of interesting, like just the far end of the pendulum shifting. But I do think that it's just a little out of balance and people prioritize it over everything else to the point where it is a replacement for having a sense of community at all. In some ways, I think it causes people who are single to sabotage themselves and just act weird. I'll explain. And of course, this can cause people to feel pressure to just settle when it may not be the right time. There's a lot to get into here, but we're going to start with how it affects single people first, mostly because I'm single now, so I can speak to this. So really the first issue and thing I've noticed is that this emphasis, this like obsession with being married by a certain age, or just our society in general expecting everyone to get married at all, it causes people who are single to convince themselves that they are unhappy. Okay, it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy. Our society pretty much tells you that if you are single, like you want to be married, you want to be in a relationship again, even if you like just got out of one and like you're fine taking a beat, like being on your own for a bit. It's like this overarching thing and people asking you like, are you dating again? Are you like, it's like an expectation, right? When really you can be quite content and fulfilled in your life when you are single, and you can acknowledge that like, yeah, you might be happier with someone else in it too, but that doesn't mean you have to be miserable in the meantime. But I really think people convince themselves that they can't be happy. Like, I have seen it firsthand in my life.
More people could hear this message, because I once was like, I need a relationship, I need a boyfriend, that's gonna bring me happiness. I was like a serial dater, and now I haven't dated anyone in 2 years. I'll go on first dates, I'm having fun, but this is the richest I've been, this is the most confident I've been, and this is the happiest I've been. That's probably why I've been single for so long, is because I'm not settling for anything. You build a life so amazing for yourself. You are going to be happy and single because you are so full, you don't need anyone else to fill your cup.
Okay, this is the thing, is if you think you can't be happy without something, then it's true. Like, it just becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Doesn't matter what it is. If you can't be happy without a certain house, a certain type of car, or a relationship, you will convince yourself to not be happy until you have that thing. Even if you have a very full life with a great job, maybe you travel a lot, have a lot of hobbies and passions and things, but if you're so fixated on this thing you don't have, you will convince yourself to be miserable, and that is a problem because it's just unnecessary. Like, you don't have to be miserable in the meantime. So one issue with this is it causes people who are single to spend a lot of time prioritizing getting into a relationship rather than just building community. My whole thesis here is if you just build community, focus on yourself and meeting new people in general, eventually, like, you will find someone that you want to date. It just will happen naturally. But because people kind of obsess over it and worry about maybe not finding it or not having that yet, they focus just on finding a romantic relationship. And oftentimes it is the exact type of people who could benefit from having more community that are looking for a relationship.
I found that the times that I was longing for a romantic relationship more than ever was when I lacked community, when I felt lonely. And that might sound obvious, but I think a lot of the times when you're in it, it, you don't realize that your loneliness is attributed to a lack of community versus a lack of romance. And so you're spending all this time on dating apps, you're seeking out romantic connection, but in reality, all you really need is a sense of community and belonging. So I think it's important to remember, like, you shouldn't be getting into a relationship just because you feel lonely and just because you want friends. That's not even going to be a healthy foundation for a romantic relationship. So
this is kind of what I'm saying, is people look at a relationship as an alternative to just building community, and it's especially people who feel lonely, who don't have that community hate that word, that community, that sense of community in their life, that feel even more like they want a relationship to fill the gap when they could just start building their community. The way that people sometimes go about dating is like demoralizing and exhausting. What I think is pretty common now is people treating dating almost like something they can work towards, and because of apps, just a numbers game of just going on a bunch of different random dates.
I went on 29 Hinge dates this year. Let's talk about it.
And hey, this does work for people, but it's kind of, I think, a demoralizing way to go about it. Say you go on 10 Hinge dates, for example. That's a lot of time and effort with a bunch of random people who it might work out, it might not. At the end of the day, it's kind of a crapshoot, and you could have nothing really to show for it at the end except for some funny stories. You might meet the love of your life. I do have 2 friends who have met, like, one friend is married from a guy she met on Hinge, and the other is like living with her boyfriend. So I mean, it can work. This is not helping my point. But I feel like those are kind of the exceptions. Most people, they'll go on these 10 dates and it kind of won't get them anywhere, when they could have spent that time doing literally anything else in their life and actually felt a sense of progress. Because at the end of that, if you go on all those dates and you didn't meet someone, you'd be like, what was that all for? Like, that was kind of a waste of time, a little bit. I like what this creator, her experience and what she has to say about it.
I am the happiest I've been in so long. Imagine what you could do with the time that you spend looking for a guy to date. So many things you could be doing. So many things. So many skills you could be learning. So many things that you could be doing to level yourself up.
It's true. If you're just spending your time focusing on yourself and doing the things you want to do, whether that's building a business, side hustle, or just something you're passionate about, hobbies, doesn't have to be making money, just building your community in general, you can end up with, I think, just as good of a chance of meeting someone who you could end up in a romantic relationship with, because even each new friend you meet unlocks all these people that they know, you know? The emphasis on being in a romantic relationship causes people to look at dating as like a goal and something to work towards, when really what I've learned is just making the goal enjoying your life and being content with your life on your own and making it very full on your own. That is more of a worthy goal. Not to mention, even when people are married, have the white picket fence, 2.5 kids, whatever, they still long for community. Take it from this guy.
So I'm currently living in a nuclear family. I have 2 beautiful dogs, beautiful wife, happily married, 4 perfect, amazing children. When you actually arrive here, and I don't think very many people will admit this, but this is not nearly enough. There is a deep longing and loneliness still. There is an overemphasis on romantic love in our culture, and I believe that it is pushed by capitalism. People go their whole lives longing to find the perfect man or the perfect woman, or at least a good man or someone who's going to meet their needs. That's just a myth. It's a myth, and the nuclear family is also mostly a myth. We are not longing for romance, guys. We are longing for intimate community. I say this all the time.
So people are focusing really so heavily on the romance side, but not really at all on community a lot of the time when they're single. When ideally you want both, and to put some focus on both, not just one. I feel like when you do this, when you focus on yourself, making your life more fun for yourself, you know, you're focusing on your hobbies, your passions, whatever. I feel like a broken record talking about that stuff. You actually end up being like more valuable in the dating pool. You're a more interesting, well-rounded person. And I've had friends who have taken this approach, and it has worked out great. Also, can we talk about that, just when people are so obsessed with getting a boyfriend or a relationship or whatever, it is a little insufferable, I will say. Like, I think because I am someone now who's kind of just at the moment decentered that, because I was in a relationship for 3 years and now I'm not in one, so I'm not like jumping to get back into one. So for me, it's just not top priority at the moment. So when I am around people who are like so obsessed with that, it makes me cringe a little, because I just know I'm like, being obsessed with it is not going to get you there faster. Just focus on yourself and your life. And it's like desperate energy, honestly. Like, that might sound harsh, and I think that people sense that. Like, if you have that desperate energy, like you're desperate to be in a relationship, people will sense that and feel like you're just looking for someone to fill a slot. Honestly, like, I think that's a real thing. I think one reason people convince themselves like they need a relationship is because love is almost viewed as an achievement. It's sort of like a status symbol, and it becomes a stigma to be single after a certain age. Although I think that's like kind of changing. It's still sort of a thing. Like, I feel like whatever the average age is that people get married, if you were single after that, it's like people pity you and kind of feel bad for you, even if you might be like living your life, having a great time. I mean, watch this TikTok.
Why do romantic relationships feel more important than platonic relationships? Because romantic love has been put on this pedestal as something to achieve. In the same way that you go to college to achieve the degree, the same way that you plan out your dream career to achieve something. And see, when you operate in love as achievement, right, it's viewing love as achieving worthiness.
It's interesting, right? She says romantic love has been put on this pedestal of something to achieve. I think it makes people think that then it's something that you can work towards, put effort in. I think it's something that naturally just sort of happens when you are meeting a lot of people and like living your life. But so many people now do treat it as something to work towards and to like tick off, like buying a house. Like, you got to work towards that, you got to get that, and then you'll be happy or whatever. Even in the way people talk about it, when people get engaged, what does everyone say? They say congratulations, like it's an achievement, when a lot of times it's kind of just luck. I feel almost more appropriate of what we should be saying is, I'm so happy for you, like, but congratulations makes it seem like they just climbed Mount Everest or something, you know? A BBC article found that 29% of single adults are told that they must be so lonely, and 40-year-old singles are deemed socially immature. Once someone grows older, people expect them to settle down and start having kids. Due to this widespread expectation, if an older adult isn't in a relationship, they might be viewed as a spinster. It's kind of an old school view, but I feel like this causes people to then sometimes stay in relationships that might not be right for them for longer, because they're going to be viewed in a negative way by society if they're single again. And we'll get into that. Okay, quick break to thank some of the sponsors of this episode. The first one is HelloFresh. I'm sure you guys have heard of HelloFresh before. They're a meal kit delivery service. And you know, summer is the season of doing, whether it's traveling, working on home projects. The last thing you want is to spend a bunch of time figuring out what to cook. HelloFresh is the #1 meal kit delivery service, and they help you enjoy your summer by just delivering everything you need to make dinner and make it delicious. They've added some new stuff for summer. The sun-dried tomato grilled cheese sandos look so good. Gonna need to make that. And they've also made it even easier with these ready-made meals. So if you don't want to cook a whole meal, you can order the ready-made meals. They have stuff like these Southwest-inspired chicken bowls or stir-fried udon with pulled pork. They're all chef-crafted, and you can make them in just 3 minutes. Every meal is made with high-quality ingredients, and the instructions are really easy to follow. Like, I've made a bunch of HelloFresh meals, and I always found them to be really easy, and I like that I learned something too. Make your summer enjoyable and delicious by signing up for HelloFresh at hellofresh.com/Shelby10FM and get 10 free meals with a free item for life. That's hellofresh.com/Shelby10FM for 10 free meals and a free item in every box. I also want to thank Viore for sponsoring this episode, which is so exciting because I've been a fan of Viore for a while. I'm always wearing their tennis stuff. I have one of their tennis dresses that I love. Viore right now has this dream knit jogger that is so comfy and very versatile. You know, you can wear it working out, but you can also wear it just running errands. In general, I feel like that's true of a lot of Viore's stuff. You could wear it working out, but you can wear it just living your life, which is awesome, and it's cute. The performance jogger has a lightweight and relaxed fit, but it is also moisture wicking. So if you want to wear it while working out, it is still good for that. So Viore is actually offering 20% off your first purchase to my listeners, you can go to viori.com/Shelby. That is viori.com/Shelby to get that 20% off. Not only do you get 20% off your first purchase, but you can also get free shipping on any US orders over $75 and free returns. Exclusions apply. You can visit the website for full terms and conditions. This podcast is also sponsored by Kudos. Kudos is a really cool service that helps you pick which credit card to use to maximize and get the most cash back or rewards, points, whatever it is your credit cards have. So if you have multiple credit cards and you're trying to get more points so that, like me, you can get flight upgrades, things like that, this is going to help you do it. And it's 100% free. So Kudos works online and in store. So if you are in store, you can pull up the iOS app and see what that store offers. They also have perk tracking. So you know how a lot of credit cards have all these perks, but you forget about them? Kudos will basically remind you of the perks that you might be forgetting about so you actually use them. The feature I'm most obsessed with is Cheat Sheet. This is in the iOS app. You just pull it up whether you're in store or shopping online, and it'll tell you which card gives you the highest return. I think this is great before any big purchase because those points can really add up. They also have a shopping comparison tool that stacks additional rewards. So this is on top of what your card already earns. And if you sign up with code Shelby, they'll give you an additional $20 back. That's after you make your first purchase on an eligible item. So like I said, Kudos is 100% free. You can click the link in my description and sign up with the code Shelby to get that $20 back after your first eligible purchase. I'll have it linked down below. Thank you to Kudos for sponsoring. And now back into the episode. One of the main reasons I think this overemphasis, this whole thing is an issue, is because it causes people to settle sometimes. Okay? I'm just gonna call it like it is. Like, a lot of people settle. Like this TikTok.
Controversial take. I think 75% of people in relationships are just in relationships because they don't know how to be on their own. I said it. 75% of people, fuck it, I'm going up to 80%. 80% of people in relationships aren't actually in love with the people that they're in a relationship with. They just don't know how to be on their own. I think maybe 50% of the 80% think they're in love with that person because when they're away from them, they miss them and they think, oh my God, I miss him so much. But it's because they just don't know how to be on their own. I'm telling you, I see a lot of my friends with their partners and I'm like, you do not love that man.
Look at the comments. People are like, a lot of people think a lot of people settle too. I'm not saying everyone does. I think a lot of people genuinely found the love of their life and that's great. But when you look at the divorce rates being what they are, it's like, okay, a lot of people did settle too, probably. Why do people settle? It's because of that pressure and that expectation. It's kind of like a domino effect because once a few people in a friend group get married, the other people kind of start to feel like that's what they should do too. Not just because that's what their friends are doing and they want to be like them, but because those friends aren't really available as much anymore. They're probably not prioritizing their friends as much. And so they're like, okay, I guess it must be my time too. I should just settle down with whoever I'm with. One thing that really points to settling being something that happens is the taxi cab theory. If you haven't heard of this, it was popularized by Sex and the City, and it's this theory that with men, they settle down when the time is right, and it's like a taxi cab where they just put the light on. I'll let this TikTok explain it.
If a taxi has its light off, it's not looking to pick up any riders, and it doesn't matter how hard you try to flag it down, you're not going to get picked up. But when they decide they're ready to pick up a rider, they turn their light on and they pick up the first person that they see. Doesn't matter how long they've been waiting there, the first person that they see. So basically with men, if they're not looking for a relationship, it doesn't matter how hard you try to tie them down, you're not gonna win. But when they decide that they're ready for a relationship, pretty much that first girl is the one that they settle down with.
But yeah, it's basically like men, this idea that, and of course not all of them are like this, but they don't marry for love. It's just when the time is right, whoever is available or in front of them, which is kind of a scary thought because it's like, what? Like, I would hate to later learn that I married a guy who had used this theory as his framework for getting married. It'd be like, what? But okay, the reason I think the taxi cab theory even exists is because it's when guys notice that their friends are getting married and so they feel the pressure to get married. And also, let's talk about what settling really looks like, because I think people get this confused. Like, settling is not really based on superficial things. Many people will say, oh, like, she settled, she could do so much better than him based on looks, when it's like, okay, no, actually they may not be settling because they may have a great relationship. Like, the superficial things are really not what we're talking about here, but I think a lot of people do kind of point to that or think of that when they think of settling. Settling is more like, you know, deep down this is not the right relationship long term, but you've sunk so much time into it and you don't want to be single again, so you just go with it. that is settling. Or like it could even be unhealthy, toxic, abusive. And like it does happen, you guys. One of the most interesting examples is from this book. This is Andre Agassi's book. He was this like iconic tennis player in the early 2000s, and I've referenced this book like a few times, I think, in videos, but it's because he speaks so candidly about things that I feel like a lot of men don't normally speak about. So he got married to Brooke Shields, and the way he writes about it in his book is fascinating. Let me just show you guys. They really shouldn't have ever gotten married, okay? I think he felt just like, yeah, it's like I should probably just get married now. That's probably what I should do now. So this is sort of what he said. Part of me simply doesn't want to be married right now, but who cares what I want? When is what I want ever a good index of what I should do? Besides, everyone around me is getting married. Perry, Philly, JP. In fact, Philly and JP met their wives together on the same night. And then he asks his friend for advice. They talk for hours, blah, 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 blah. He ends up buying a ring. Okay, I'm skipping ahead here. So this is what he says right after he proposes. She says, yes, yes, yes. And he goes, wait, I think, wait. Is this the person that Andre Kirk Agassi is supposed to spend the next 90 years with? So literally, like, as he was proposing, he was questioning it. Why do people do this? It's because of the freaking pressure they feel because his friends were getting married, because he felt like, oh, I should just do this now, even though it was clearly not the right person. But he couldn't really like see that. He was just like, well, like this is probably just how it's supposed to feel. Anyway, even worse when the wedding actually happens. There was a Brooke lookalike leaving the venue to trick the paparazzi. And this is what he says. I have a thought no man should have on his wedding day. I wish I were leaving too. I wish I had a decoy groom to take my place. Yikes. I mean, so that's what, why do people do that? You hate to read that. I'm just going to say for people who maybe have settled, yes, there's personal responsibility and they chose to do that, but also there's a reason they chose to do it. It's because there's a stigma of being single at an older age. It's because, you know, his friends were married and now he was probably going to feel more isolated if he was single again. In general, it's just not as accepted, and he probably just didn't have a great sense of community outside of that. And I think that's why people do this. It's like, yeah, you shouldn't do it, but at the same time I'm like, can you really blame people when that is like their lifeline to a sense of belonging? You can still blame them, but you can also have some empathy and see why people do that, you know? Obviously, like, settling is not great. It's not going to probably lead to like a lasting happy marriage, even if you end up staying together. But the thing is, I mean, it might, you know, I mean, there are arranged marriages and those people work it out, so maybe, but are they actually happy? I don't know. The whole point of me talking about this is I think the reason that people do this is because they just feel pressure from this overemphasis on having to get married kind of by a certain age, or just that they're going to be isolated if they're single. This is just one example. If you go on Reddit, that's where you always see people like admitting to stuff they don't want to tell people, but there are people who like admit that they settled. I mean, this one post, this guy basically says that he still thinks about like a friend that he had who he felt more of a connection with, but he for some reason didn't end up pursuing her and he settled for his wife. It's kind of sad. He says, I keep thinking back to my relationship with my friend, how I felt, how she understood me and still understands me now, and I can't help think that's what a real relationship is supposed to be. Why'd he settle? I don't know, but that's what I mean when I'm talking about settling, is like that basically. I think if people had more community, like more friends, neighbors that they know, just that in general, and there wasn't that much pressure, they'd probably be more likely to just wait until it actually truly feels right to marry that person. Lucky for me, I live in LA, and so it's not really that bad. If you're single at 30, it's like pretty normal actually. Like I have a lot of friends who are single, but I know it's not like that everywhere. If you live in a small town, even my friends in Seattle are pretty much all married at this point for the most part. And so depending on where you live, that stigma is more intense. In the bigger cities, it's not a big deal, but in small towns, like that would be really tough and you'd feel way more isolated. Like I really don't feel like it's unusual or isolating because I have a lot of friends who are in a similar position, but that would suck and be so hard if I didn't have that. I also have the benefit that like my parents are not really that pressuring, like just the culture in general I'm in is not that intense, but that's not true for everyone. I found a TikTok from this creator. She grew up Armenian and there's a lot more pressure for her.
Are you even Armenian if you grew up without hearing any of these phrases? You're being too picky. Your grandparents want to see you get married before they die. When I was your age, I already had 2 kids. By your mid-20s, it's expected that you are either engaged or on your way there. And this pressure can feel heavy for so many reasons. The negative emotional impact of constantly feeling behind is way more harmful to yourself than anything else. You might rush into relationships to please your family. You may stay in unhealthy dynamics or relationships because you never feel like you're going to find someone. And you may feel guilt or shame for wanting to just have some self-growth or focus on your career.
But she seems very self-aware. It still seems difficult though, because she probably has that pressure. That's got to be annoying. That's got to be difficult. So let's talk about weddings and the role that they play. I mean, I made a whole video about weddings and how they're kind of out of hand now. I feel like a lot of people have made videos about this because weddings just in general are a lot more expensive now. They're a lot more extravagant and more of a production. Sometimes feel like more for social media. Look, I'm not a wedding hater. I like going to weddings and it's fun. And I feel like I have to make a disclaimer because my sister's getting married soon. Like, I'm not talking about her wedding here, okay? I'm excited to go to her wedding. It'll be fun. But we're talking about like sometimes weddings in general, okay? So obviously weddings are more of a production now. And because of that, they have a lot more planning that goes into it. And one thing I've noticed is the planning, it almost becomes like a part of the person's identity for a year. A lot of the time, people will even put in their Instagram bio, if they're an influencer, that they're a bride that year. I mean, probably because that might help them get some brand deals or something, who knows? But it's interesting. It's like, boom, that's like a part of their identity. And the thing is, you're making something a part of your identity that is going to end. I think weddings and the way they are now, it just kind of contributes to the like overemphasis on this whole thing in our society, because it's really not just the wedding anymore. If you go on social media, it is like professional photos for the engagement and then a photo shoot after that to like announce the wedding, then the actual wedding, and then like a month after, a year after, people post the photos again and again.
1 month down, married to this guy and forever to go. Happy birthday to my best friend, my ride or die. Sorry only your arm's in this, but the best night ever. May our love forever reach new heights. # save the planet.
And I can't blame people, honestly. Like, they're spending so much money on those photos that, yeah, post them a year later. You like those photos, everyone do whatever you want. And these photos always get a lot of engagement, right? Because I mean, they're great photos and like everyone's gonna like them. So you end up seeing people's wedding photos that like you forget you're even following because it gets such good engagement. It like gets posted to the very top of the feed, when it makes it almost feel like everyone's getting married or engaged or whatever, when that's not really the case. There's actually a lot of people that are also quietly calling off engagements, going through breakups, but they're not posting about it. So social media and weddings in general just sort of like contribute to the overemphasis thing and like rewarding people who are getting married. All of this like obsession with weddings just kind of makes people want to get married more, sometimes not even for the actual marriage, but just for the wedding, just to have a party.
These days, most women want a wedding and not a marriage. We're not in a rush to get married. But like one of my friends, she always gets asked, when does she want to get married? But her career is also like, she is a performer, and she said that she thinks that a lot of women, they just want to get married because they want a wedding. They want a day where everything is just about them and they get to be a princess.
I've even seen some people say that like if everyone just had a party when they turned like 28 or whatever, then there would be a lot less divorces, because, you know, sometimes people just now, they just want the party. Basically, weddings just being what they are now, it kind of creates this illusion, especially on social media, that everyone is coupled up when that's not really true. And I don't know, it probably makes people feel more pressure. It's just a highlight reel. It's heavily skewed. I mean, you never know when really they're at the wedding thinking something like this. Like, again, I'm not trying to be a wedding hater. Like, I think they're fun to go to. I don't want people to think that. I just think that it's interesting how they've changed so much over the years. Like, my parents' wedding cost a few $1,000s and it looked pretty low key. Okay, now let's talk about the problem with this whole overemphasis thing with people even who are in relationships. And I mean, one of the more obvious ones, and I'm not trying to be a downer here or pessimistic, but statistically, a lot of those marriages aren't going to last. Right now, the statistic is like 40 to 45% of marriages end in divorce. That's a lot. And it's typically after 8 years. So after that time, so quite a lot of people are going to actually end up single again. And this is where it really becomes an issue if you prioritized your relationship all the time over everything else, is you might not have that community anymore. Like, something I've noticed is when people get married, they really aren't as not just available to hang out, which makes sense. Like, there's just a shift there, but they just don't really make the initiative as much as when they're single. And so it's only natural that if you're kind of not making the initiative as much with a lot of friendships, you would kind of slowly start to lose your community a little bit. Because our society tells people like romantic relationship is the most important thing, I think a lot of people do really deprioritize their friendships.
You know what's a concept that I find really weird? I've always found weird. And now that I'm married, I find it even more weird when people get married and stop hanging out with their single friends. I have seen people do that. I've seen people say like, oh, you know, hang out with my single friends now that I'm married. It just feels depressing. It feels sad because they're so lonely. And like I've heard single people being like, yeah, my married friends just dipped out on me.
Then if you do break up or get divorced, it's a hell of a lot harder. It is.
Okay, so I think I've stopped kind of hanging out with my coupled up friends or married friends. And like legit, since I started going through my divorce, separation, all that, that was my choice because I got tired of my ex treating me like shit. I'm just gonna go on the record saying that real quick. But my friends will ask me and their partners will be like, how's dating going? And I'm like, I'm not. Is that okay? They'll look at me dead ass straight in the face and be like, yeah, we were on our way home from that event the other night. And you know what? My partner and I, we were just so glad that we have each other and we don't have to get back out there and date. And let me remind you, some of these people I know in marriages kind of hate each other. Some of these people in marriages are really depressed and not happy.
Even if you don't ever end up getting divorced, it just adds to your life to have these other kinds of relationships, like friendships or maybe people you mentor or volunteer or whatever. I don't want to say people should like be living for a backup plan and just have community as a backup plan in case you get divorced, because I think it's important to have. And even this guy who seemingly has it all says this as well. He still needs community, not just his nuclear family. And that's something people should maybe focus more on.
Stop focusing on romantic love, trying to find romantic love. And we need to start recreating the village. This is in our DNA. It's inside of us. The longing is just not for romance. The longing is for small villages and communities.
So really, the whole point of this episode is that, you know, romantic love is a great thing, but it's not everything. And I think that when people feel the pressure to force it when it's not really there, it leads to some problems. People who are single convince themselves they're unhappy. People get into the wrong relationships and feel this sunk cost fallacy and are too scared to leave. And people don't really prioritize building community. They look at relationship as a replacement for everything. So what can you do about it? Basically, just try and build a life that you love and realize that some of the stigmas and stuff are just kind of silly and just because it's what's always been done. My goal is not necessarily to like get into a relationship. It's just to build a life I love, and then I figure I'll probably meet someone along the way. But I'm not stressing about it too much. But I just see so many people are. So you can have your passions, your friendships, your hobbies. You don't have to obsess and like put a lot of work into getting into a romantic relationship. In fact, sometimes that can deter it. Like the desperate energy, I think, is a real thing. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode. Let me know what you thought about it. Like, I've been thinking about it a lot, but it's been hard to articulate what I mean because I don't want to sound like a hater. Because I'm like, well, I'm not like one of those people who's like anti-relationship, but it just feels like a little out of balance in the way that our society talks about it. I don't know. Okay, I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you enjoyed it, or if you prefer to listen, I also upload these to Spotify and Apple Podcasts, so I'll link that down below. You can subscribe there if you prefer to listen that way, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye!